Hello everyone! I'm never sure if you can hear me right off the bat. So I just kind of sit here and pull weird faces and look at you until I get validation that you can hear me. All that. We see and hear you. Thank you. Thanks for not making me wait forever to get that. So how is everybody? Wow, we've got quite a good group here today. I mean, usually we start off with just a couple and then it kind of, more people come in as we go. So we've got a nice, good group here today. And what are we doing today? So I almost set up the wrong video for you today, which would have been weird because I almost set up next week's video. You guys would have been like, what's happening here? And yeah, that was a thing that almost happened, but it didn't. I don't think. Let me make sure. No, okay, we have the right video set up. Okay, can you believe that this is still hanging from our watercolor thing we did in the beginning of January? All of the other ones fell off the wall. That is the only one that has stayed. So I don't know, I used the exact same tape. I guess I just like hulked that one when I put it on the wall. Hulk smash, and there it stayed. All right, Deb is invoking Mr. Moon already with the Mr. Moon emoji. He's asleep on the couch over there, and I think we'll just kind of let him remain sleeping over there because he will, he'll be over here soon enough, I'm sure of it. He'll probably be all up in my face and pulling my headphones off and showing you his bottom because that's what cats do. Okay, so I guess we're ready to go. So if any of you, and I am freezing today, so if you see my zombie fingers, don't worry about me. It's cold in here and I'm sitting right underneath the heater and I'm just freezing. Okay, so remember to put your questions in caps, and if I don't get to it, ask again, and I will do my best to get to it. I want to talk about, my brain is so scattered today. Do we want to talk about watercolor? We talked about watercolor, right? Last time you guys said you're totally into it. I had plans to record a watercolor tutorial, this week, and I wasn't able to get to that. So that is something I am for sure going to look at doing next week. Maybe I'll work on that tomorrow. And I do have a hint for you for next week's painting that we will get to a little bit later. I mean, I guess it's not a hint. I'm showing you the entire image. And I hope you guys like it. I really, really like it. So, but that always means if I really, really like it, nobody else is going to like it. I know I say that to you all the time, but it's been proven time and time again. Every time I'm like, yes, I'm in love with this one. Nobody watches it. Okay, so yeah, hints, we'll wait a little bit. We'll wait until we're about halfway through our video. No, we're not going to see now, Donna. I will show you, but I gotta give you guys a reason to keep watching, If I give you the goods right now, you'll be like, sweet, saw it, peace. And I want to keep you around because I don't like talking to myself. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And I am ready for some, let me see if I can show you. I'm ready for some palette knife demos. I've got my palette knives right here. You can't really see them. And yeah, we are ready. So if you guys need palette knife demos, just give me a shout and I will help you out. I want to know, specifically when we get to individual elements in the painting, I want to know if you had a hard time with it. So first we're going to sketch it out. So if you had problems with sketching, let me know. When we're painting the sky, all of those, shout out if you had an issue and we can talk about those things specifically. Alrighty, here we go. As always, let me know how the volume on the video is compared to my voice. What? Oh man, that's not good. Video just died. Why did my video die? Please stand by, folks. Oh, my player is like totally frozen up. What's gonna happen? All right, let's see if I can get this back. I think it's because it's on my external hard drive, and for some reason, every once in a while it cuts out. Let me actually see if I can move that file over to my computer real quick so that we don't have to deal with that. Let's see. Oh no, that's going to take way too long. We're not going to do that. Just don't look at my dumb face here at the beginning. Okay, here we go. Ready? We're doing so good already today. Ow.
This is a board, not a stretched canvas. And it doesn't really matter. You can use a stretched canvas if you like. The reason I'm using a board is because my palette knives,
all right, audio is good.
Palette knives, and they don't really have the spring to them that a lot of metal knives have. See, it doesn't have a lot of bend, and I'm going to be doing a lot of scraping, putting quite a bit of pressure.
You used to like doing the clouds with a knife instead of the brush. Interesting. I really enjoyed doing clouds like this.
So
and it is something that I've done quite a bit of recently. So if you guys follow me on Instagram,
it's really not a big deal. Just be a little bit more careful
if you
with
saw
your larger one, or cut a credit card or something.
I put an image on Instagram a while ago, and everybody was like, "Show us how to do
just
that."
Two different size of palette knives. I'm only
and so I did. So let me see if I can get in here. See, why does it keep freezing up? Stupid thing.
Start outlining just where I want my elements.
So if you saw that on my Instagram,
if you like. So I'm just going to
that is the exact same technique we used here for the clouds.
I'm just going to loosely mix up a color with those. It's pretty thin. I'm not worried about underbinding because I'm going to paint over all of it. Now over here on my canvas, I just want to really remind myself where my horizon's going to be.
Shirley wants to know if her palette knives being old is a problem. It shouldn't be, as long as they don't have like chips and dings in them. If they have uneven spots, then they might spread your paint unevenly. But if their shape is still
I think my horizon's up a little too high.
Solid, then they should be perfectly fine no matter how old they are.
Let's do the rocks right about in here. I'm just going to put them in here very, very loosely. Of course, when I start palette knifing, the shape and the placement of everything can quite possibly change. And then I'm going to have
Katrina said I used cheap plastic knives and didn't have the big one. Should I invest in metal ones? That's really up to you. I don't have a problem with plastic knives. This is actually the first set of metal knives I've ever owned.
Pay attention to that one.
And
so from here on out, everything I'm going to
I don't think there's a problem with plastic knives. In fact, if I hadn't lost almost all of my plastic knives, I probably would have just done this with plastic knives. But I had to order some new palette knives.
I like to use these.
If I wanted to keep using knives, and so I got this set.
Help me get a really nice.
But yeah, I think using what you have is perfectly fine. I even saw some where people used credit cards instead of knives. So whatever you got to do. God, everything is so laggy today.
So if you can see on my
sorry, you guys.
There are no blobs of paint. It's just kind of a little...
Yeah, Nisa did it with plastic knives.
I'm going to come over into my white, pull some out.
Shouldn't be an issue.
Just loosely mix it in there.
Yeah, it looks like my stream health. YouTube is reporting my stream health is bad.
Kind of fade down darker.
Hopefully it'll get better.
Let's start with that and see how that is.
Yes, Nadine, that is my glass palette that I made. And if you guys didn't see that, I did have just a really short video on Instagram showing you how to make one of these. Super easy, super fast. And I love it.
The top of my easel, because these canvas boards don't fit in here real well. But what I'm going to do is start at the top, and I'm going to scrape it on there. Kind of lay it down about in the area you want it. And then turn
Good, Gwen. I'm glad that you're enjoying the glass palette.
Not flat, not yet. The edge, and scrape it. That's going to get it down into the texture and leave kind of a thin layer.
Ooh, maybe I should
I'm gonna
move
be
my
pretty specific
my
in what I
face.
tell you to do with this
We'll
knife.
put
Right here, I'm just kind
me
of using
down here.
the nose
How
of the
about that?
knife to get
For a
into
minute.
that texture, to fill in any little holes. When I want to smooth something out, like if I feel that that's
Bonnie
a
asked
little bit
how
of a
the glass
blob,
palette
I'm gonna
is
put my
for
pressure
cleanup.
in
It's
this part of the knife, the
super
heel.
easy. If you watched
So see the nose is up off of the canvas.
abstract video,
And
I
I'm
actually
kinda
show
rubbing
you
at the
how I clean
heel
it
of the
in that
knife.
video, and it only takes a minute.
I think I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint.
Katrina said
than I did
that
last time there.
trying to use the
I'm
heel
not
of the
worried
palette
if
knife
my
didn't
blue and
work.
brown mixture is a little
So
different
I
every
would
time we
like
come
to
it.
hear about that, Katrina.
If
Tell
that's a
me
concern for you,
a little
some
bit more.
people
Tell
it
me
is. They want
what
a more
happened.
consistent color. Then just mix it up into a color that you like in the first place. But I'm happy just kind of mixing it as I go. There we go. Kind of scrape it on the edge to get a good load on the back. I picked up more paint this time than last time. Back to my canvas. I'm just going to kind of swipe it.
Do you guys like this where I'm using the picture-in-picture to show you the palette?
Edge,
do you like that better than when I used to like hold a plate up in front of the camera?
So my paint is going on very thin here. In the sky especially, I want to make sure that my paint is thin because in a palette knife painting, the more texture you have, to me anyway, the more texture there is, the closer it seems to be. Well, the sky is not right there in your face. It's quite a ways away.
Okay, good. I'm glad you guys like that. I wasn't sure if it was like distracting having it be there. Shirley says I couldn't get the paint to smooth out using the heel. Okay, so we can go over that. It might have been an issue with my pressure. I was using the long, thin palette knife because I didn't have a big one, and it kept leaving lines in the paint and didn't smooth. So it could, to me, Katrina, that almost sounds like you had too much paint on the palette knife, but it could also be like if they're cheap palette knives, like mine, these metal ones I have, they're very cheap palette knives, and one of them like has a spot that kind of pokes out a little, and it doesn't do good for smoothing. So if your knives aren't perfectly smooth, that could be it, but it kind of sounds to me like maybe you had too much paint on your knife. So we can do a demonstration on that.
I feel like my paint is too thick. So then
in fact, if you like, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Give my computer a little bit of a break, see if my stream health can improve. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. Make sure that we're not frozen up there. Okay. And I think I may have fixed the lagging on this camera. I hope I did anyway. Let's grab some colors that you'll be able to see well. Put out some white. Yeah, we still have a little lag on this camera. But it should be better than it was. Like last week, it was super bad. And that sucked. And some blue. Just to give some colors that you'll be able to see. Okay, and I just kind of grabbed a random knife. So I'm gonna slide my knife through it. See, I'm kind of pressing flat. I think that exposure is up a little high. Let me turn that down. Come on, camera. Okay. So how I'm loading up is I'm just kind of pushing it flat in there and then smoothing it back. And so it just gives me a light smear of paint. There is no gob of paint here. Come on, stop freezing up. Hello, thank you. See, there's no gob of paint. It's just a smear. So, well, I guess for this part, I do need to pick up a little more than that. Okay, I picked up a little more. So I'm going to scrape it into there. Just cover all those little holes. See how, can you see the texture of the paint, particularly right here? So you want to smooth that out. When doing this technique, you want your paint as smooth as possible. That's why I have no problem scraping it. because if there are gobs and you're getting ridges, you're going to have a hard time blending. Okay, now I can slide into the white just a smear. So remember, the pressure is on the bottom half of the knife. And so let's see, how can I explain that to you? Can you see how, come on, quit lagging. Golly, you guys, I'm sorry. Someday I'll figure out how to be a tech person. See how I've got the pressure, how the tip of the knife is up? I mean, it's not quite that dramatic, but still, the pressure is right there on the heel. See, the tip of that knife is still up. Even if it goes all the way down, the heavy part of my pressure is still on the heel. So I'm going to come up to here, and I'm scrubbing the heel of my knife. I can just tell that the tip of the knife is up. Pushing, it's a good amount of pressure. See, look at my finger. Like, I'm putting a good amount of pressure. I'm not just kind of going like this and lightly wiping. That's not going to do it. Good amount of pressure. Really dig that paint down into the texture of the canvas. Okay, so we'll do it again. Heel. Can you tell that the nose of my knife is up so you can see the little bit of shadow? And a good amount of pressure. That's how, with that pressure like that, that's how I'm getting that broken edge here, because this part of my knife does not have full pressure. It's not squishing the paint. The paint just happens to touch it there. Let's do it one more time. Like that. Now, when I need to fill in a hole, but see how thin my paint is. There's no, please computer, cooperate with me. See, there's no texture in that paint. See, when it reflects, you can't see ridges in my paint. Now, if I need to fill in a hole, if I have a little spot that just won't fill in, now I'm bringing it up so the heel is off the ground. The pressure's on the tip of my knife. And that will dig that paint down into there. And if I want to smooth it out, I can just go back over it with the heel. That's all there is to it. Now I can go back into my blue, just a light smear. And notice I don't even really have any of that blue down here where the pressure is going to be on my knife. So I'm going to start right there, just below where I left off on the white. Come down here onto the nose of my knife, get down in that texture, back up onto the heel to smooth it out. It's all about thin. I know when we use palette knives, we want to use a heavy amount of paint because, you know, we think of palette knife painting, we think of heavy texture, lots of ridges, spreading it on like frosting, but you can use a palette knife both ways. And this is one of the ways that I've really been enjoying using it lately. I've never used a palette knife with very thin amounts of paint until recently. It's always been very heavy paint, and sometimes I find that heavy paint can be really hard to control. You know, you lay it down, you might get a hard edge you don't like, you try and get rid of it, and now you've got this little stripe in there, or, you know, whatever. And particularly for things that are kind of in the distance, like I said when we were doing the beach, the sky has no like texture. It's not impasto at all. You can't feel the different colors. But the beach, I applied the paint much heavier, so there was that texture because the beach is closer to us. So I didn't really want to put heavy texture in the sky because that's going to pull the sky closer. I wanted the sky to be flat so it seemed more distant, while the beach had the heavy texture and it seemed closer to us. So I think that if you're having a hard time with that technique, really try to bring down the amount of paint that you're using. You can definitely go and like scrape the color on in the first place, but smooth it, you know, scrape it so it's not heavy. And then little bits of paint with the pressure on the heel, and it should blend in just fine. I think that for the most of you who are having a hard time with it, you probably have too much paint on your knife for the technique. So let me jump back over to chat, see if you guys have any questions with that demo before we move on. Okay. Yeah, Gwen said, I found that a tiny bit of water on my knife helped at times. Yeah, it really does, especially if you're working very thin or if your paint is drying a little bit. Yeah, it absolutely does. When would you use heavy body paints? When you want lots of texture? Eileen asks. I use them for both. Did I use heavy body in that video? I think I just used basics, huh? Yeah, heavy body is going to give you more texture, but it's also got a little bit better coverage. The colors are a little more vibrant. It just depends on what you want. Like I used heavy body for this little demonstration that I just did, and I didn't have any more of a difficult time doing this than I did with the basics. I think I used the basics last time because I just did. There was no like rhyme or reason. It wasn't like, well, I have to use basics today because heavy body is going to be bad for this. I just ended up using basics because I've noticed a lot of times when I use heavy body paints, even if I say you don't have to use heavy body paints, everybody's like, do I have to use heavy body? I have to go buy some heavy body now. And I'm like, no, you don't. You can use basics. It's okay. So I think that's probably why I chose to use basics, was just to kind of avoid answering that question 50 times. Let's see. Welcome, Audra. I'm glad you made it. I didn't think you were going to make it today. Yeah, Cindy said almost all of her seascapes use brushes for the sky and then switch to palette knives for the water and everything. Cindy, did you try the palette knife clouds? If so, I would like to hear what you thought of that. If you had a hard time with it or if you liked that, whatever. Okay, so no other questions. Let's go ahead and jump back to it. I think my computer might be done lagging for a minute. This stupid player always does that after I hit pause.
Where I've got that knife mark now, I can just burnish right over top of it and smooth it out. Okay, let's go darker.
Oh, come on. Seriously?
More blue. Loose mixture. A little heavier on the blue side than on the brown side. Still just kind of sliding my knife through it. So it's coating the back of my knife, but there's no blobs.
Oh, Cindy hasn't done this one yet. I would really like to hear your thoughts on it, Cindy.
Just make sure that color
especially
is darker than the
since,
last
you know,
color I applied.
This painting was kind of inspired by you. It was kind of funny. So I did this painting. I'd been working on this painting for a little while. I'd done a couple different versions of it. And
much better.
I was getting ready to record it. And I came across one of Cindy's posts, and I was like,
good amount of paint.
This kind of looks like Cindy's style.
Slide on right
like,
underneath.
People are going to think that I stole Cindy's painting.
Fit in there.
So we had a discussion, and so I guess it was kind of inspired by her, but like after the fact. But if you guys haven't seen Cindy's palette knife,
I'm going to take it right
Seascapes, she does amazing work.
Up in there. And experiment with your knife. Figure out, what does the paint look like when you put a good amount of pressure on it? How does it mix the paint? What happens?
I love what happens here when you take a different color and start using that heel pressure over top of the previous color. I love the way they almost smoke together like that. And as
So
I
I
show
feel
you
like
in a
I
minute,
took
it's
that
really
dark color
easy to
up too high, which
control,
I don't.
you
I
know,
think I'm
if
okay
you
with
want
that.
a
But
lot
if I
of
did,
difference
all I would have
between
to do
those
is
two
take a
colors,
little
just kind of go up
wink
into
of
it
light on the end
and
and
leave
like
it,
go
and you'll
over
have a
that
good
and
amount of
smooth it out.
texture between the colors.
Just lightly
Otherwise,
mixing those.
if you
I
want to
am leaving a
smooth it,
little
then you
bit of
just
the
kind of
color
keep going
texture
over it
between
with that
them
heel,
because
and
I
it
want
won't
this to
really take the
be
paint
a
away like when
cloudy
you go
sky
over it and over and
anyway.
over with a
I feel
brush.
like that kind
It
of
just
helps get me
smooths the
started on that.
colors really well. I think I'm going to show you that here in
Nose
just
to
a
fill in the
second.
little holes, heel to smooth the colors together.
See how hard the definition is there between those two colors.
If you feel like you're transferring too much color around,
See, at any time,
like
if you're like, wow, that
in
paint
order
is
to
too thick,
blend here,
scrape
you
it
end up
off.
losing that
When you go
light
back and
color.
burnish over it, it will
Just wipe
smooth
off
out,
your
see?
knife.
Just like I did. I didn't put more
So
paint
I'll show
on
you what I
there.
mean.
I
When you
just
get all these little white
smoothed
spots filled,
over those scrub spots, the scrape
just slid into
spots.
some of that color again. Fill in those little spots. And then I'm going to wipe off the back of my knife so it's relatively clean.
Because I didn't want to
And then I
transfer
can
too
come
much
up
paint.
with the
I just
heel
wanted to smooth out
right up into there
that spot.
and smooth those colors together a bit.
This is such a satisfying way to use palette knives for me. Like, I'm watching it now and I'm like, man, I
Lightening
want to
my
paint.
pressure here just to kind of
I
blend
want to
out some of
start
those scratch marks
doing
where
another
the
painting with a
canvas
sky
got
like
exposed.
this. And we can do more skies like this, you guys. So if you feel like this is something that you want to get a grasp on, maybe you had a hard time with it, or you loved it and you want to do more, we will definitely do more.
Just like when we scrub a background with our cloud brush, this will work your arm out too.
Shirley asked if I had a lot of paint on the knife just then. No, it's just that I'm putting a good amount of pressure, and then when the paint is too thick, I just scrape it off. Use the edge and just scrape it off.
To move the knife over
I'm using very little paint. When you see me wiping through on the palette, that's all I'm doing is just picking up that smear, just like I showed you in the demonstration. So unless I'm laying down a huge swath of color for the background to start, I'm just picking up a smear. That one time I might pick up a bigger ball, but then I scrape it in really hard and I scrape it until it covers as much of the canvas as it's going to. See, you can see a little bit of texture right here.
Okay, let's go
behind my palette now, but there's a little bit of texture in the paint right here. But I'm going to smooth that out, I believe. I believe I scraped some of that off and smooth it out. Other than that, this canvas is smooth. There's next to no texture in that sky.
Wipe it on there.
More, please.
Scrape
Yay!
it good.
See,
you can scrape
I applied a good amount of paint there, but then I scraped it. See how you can see the texture of the canvas? See, too much paint there. I just scraped it off, laid it somewhere else, went and smoothed it out.
It's really important while you're doing the smoothing that your knife is completely flat. The entire width of the knife is on the canvas. It is not rocked to one
Yeah, I
edge
think Cindy asked if anyone did this on a stretched canvas.
flat.
I think you could easily do this on a stretched canvas. There's no problem with that. Like I said, the reason I didn't is because the knives that I have are really stiff. They're not that thin, bendy metal palette knife. And I was afraid it would gouge the canvas. I'm sure I could have done it just fine on a stretched canvas, but I didn't want to risk it.
And I'm just kind of going back and forth between those two pressures. This is a technique that I've been working on for a couple of weeks now, ever since I got my new palette knives. And I've been really excited to share it with you. If you've been following me on Instagram,
that's a fairly decent amount of paint.
A couple little
just scrape it on in there.
Instances. I've shared a couple of images.
Move it around.
Anyway, of close-up paintings that I've done with this texture and technique. And this is actually the technique that I started doing in the abstract
Oh,
video
Deb's
last
friend
week,
ripped
and
the
then kept
canvas
doing.
trying to
And I told you
do
that
this
we'd
on a
talk about it
stretched
more
canvas.
later.
Yeah, you do.
This is that
You have to be a little bit more delicate with the stretched canvas because you can easily just right through it. Done it with a paintbrush before. Of course, there might have been some aggression behind that, but yeah. Katrina had a hard time getting coverage on an old stretched canvas. If you're going to do this again on a stretched canvas, maybe wet down the back and see if that helps.
Color, and I'm just going to lay it into what's left here and see how that goes. That might be just a little darker than I want right now. Cut a little more white into there. Let's test that out. That's pretty close to the same.
See, there you can see about how much paint I picked up. It was a good load because I'm starting a new color.
If you have the heavy body and you want to use the heavy bodies, that's perfectly fine too. Okay, I think.
See, I scooped up a pretty good amount there. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Scrape it until it fills in as much area as it's going to. Nice thin application.
All right, and back to the little, it's like a little circular.
And when you go to do that with the heel, if there's too much paint on your knife, just wipe it on a paper towel. You can go to it with a clean knife. It will spread and blend the colors.
Put spirals all over this.
No, don't wet down a canvas board, Shirley.
The more you brush,
if you wet down a canvas board, the front of it's just going to be wet and your paint's just going to smear. And if you wet down the back, then the cardboard inside is going to swell up and your board will be destroyed. Well, hi, Nelson. Good to see you.
Going over it once like that is going to give you a drastic difference between the colors, which I like to have in some places, and then in others, I like to go over it a little bit more just to get rid of that. And I just kind of make those decisions as I go. And we're going to go one darker, and then I think we're ready to move on. My canvas has like a little crease in it right here that's making it difficult to get down in that little spot. There we go.
Kathy asked if I think that using the plastic knives will give you the pressure on the heel. Yeah, I think you can easily do it with a plastic knife too.
But I don't want to take the sky all over into them.
These metal knives probably
going to be hard to layer
bend a little bit less than the plastic knives even. And so it might even be easier with a plastic knife than with a really stiff metal knife like what I have.
The rocks are going to be quite dark. So I'll keep my darkest part of the sky over here. If I put that dark part of the sky behind the rocks, I'm afraid I might lose the rocks. You wouldn't be able to see them quite as well. I'm going to take that down about to the horizon here. All right, and darker still. Still heavy on the blue. There's very, very little white in that mixture. Let's try that. If it's too dark, I can lighten it up. Oh, actually, I think that's good. But if it were too dark, I would just pick up a little point of white on my knife and work it in.
Shirley ended up finger painting. That's awesome. Well, Nelson, if you'd get here on time. Just kidding. No, I didn't use any medium or water. If I ever use medium, I tell you. I never use anything without telling you guys that I used it. I did dip my knife in the water while we were doing the clouds, but again, I show you that.
I'm just going to smooth this.
But no, you can use any kind of paint you like here. Like I was telling everybody earlier, I used basics here, but I believe that was the first time that I had done this technique with basics. I've done it with heavy body every other time, and I noticed zero difference.
All right, let's do some really simple palette knife clouds in here now. And you could use still your larger knife. I'm gonna go down to my smaller knife. I might decide to change my mind and go back to the larger knife. So I'm gonna come into my white and I'm gonna press my palette knife flat and drag it backwards.
Flat, just like I showed you. It's just a smear of paint. There is no
glob of paint here.
No glob of paint. It is not heavy paint.
On the
just a little bit.
Just decide where I want some clouds.
And this would have worked a lot better on my canvas had my paint stayed wet, but it dried.
You know what? I think I may go to my larger knife, actually.
Why did I decide to change knives? Because I didn't want large clouds, but then I went back to the big knife because the small knife just wasn't giving me the coverage that I wanted.
That happens, so I'm just going to dip the end of my knife into the water.
Yeah, I just ended up liking the larger knife better for it.
And I'm really doing
so it's really just personal preference. If you're using the small one and you had no problem with it, stick with it.
And the tip of the knife is going to kind of lay in those cloud shapes. So I'm using the heel. I just dipped it in my water a little bit.
I wasn't 100% happy with my clouds on this one because my canvas had dried. Like I said in the video, when I'm doing this for myself, I can do it pretty quick and you know, get to the clouds before everything else dries. But because I was talking and you know everything, I wasn't able to do that. But I feel like the clouds I did before this, where the paint stayed wet, I feel like they looked a lot better than these ones.
And so I guess it's a good thing to see how you would handle that. A little bit.
Christopher asked if I tried the slow dry blending mediums. If so, does it get too sticky to work with? I've used the slow dry blending medium a little bit, and sometimes I have a hard time with it. Sometimes it gets sticky and sometimes it doesn't. But because I can never decide when it's going to be sticky and when it's going to work nicely, I just quit using it. And so I just use matte medium now. If I feel like I need to extend my paint dry time. I didn't find that the slow dry blending medium kept the paint open all that much longer than using matte medium. I mean, it might a little bit, but the risk of it getting sticky just didn't work for me. The matte medium doesn't get sticky, and I feel like it keeps the paint open about as long. So yeah, I use matte medium for almost everything now. I hardly ever even use glazing medium anymore.
And that will help kind of bridge the gap between those colors, except I still haven't gone.
Can I show you that one, Nelson? Oh, you mean the clouds from my other painting? I don't know if it's here. It might be at home.
There we go.
Oh, Atra thinks that I'm going to show you guys next week's painting in the next 20 minutes, probably because she has to leave.
See, and that'll just
we should make her stay.
Little bits of the clouds that you didn't.
Let me see if I can find that. The other painting that I was telling you about, so you can see how those clouds turned out. So I feel like they turned out a lot better than these ones.
So again, this is the same thing as the background. I'm just not doing the scraping bit. So again, my knife is not dripping. I wet it and then shook off the water really, really well. So if I get it too wet, then it's just going to smear that paint all over the place, and that's not what I want. I just wanted to kind of...
I did find it, actually.
Just a little bit.
And now that I look at it, I don't know that I necessarily like these clouds more than the ones that I ended up with. I think they're pretty similar. Let's see. We'll pause this for a minute. And we'll go full screen so you can see. So my palette was a mess when I was doing this one, and I had a little bit of phthalo blue mixed in with my white, so the top of my sky is like a completely different color than everything else. But so these are the clouds that I did on my first run through before I recorded it, and I really like them. I think that they turned out a lot better because my paint was still wet and I didn't have a hard time blending it. I felt like the overall form of my clouds ended up looking better than in the ones that you guys saw. But this technique, you guys, you can use for so many things. You can use it for more than just clouds. So this was just kind of an experiment. This is not an amazing painting, so don't get all worried that I'm gonna make you guys do this anytime soon. But just to give you an example of how I use the exact same technique with the palette knife to create just kind of an abstract background for something else. So like here, my stupid, ugly bluebells, but I really like the background. And this is just quinacridone and white. And that's kind of like bleaching out, isn't it? You see it? Anyway, I use the exact same technique on this background here. So play with the techniques and see what you can come up with. See if you can figure out a way to use it, you know, for things other than clouds. Is that next week? No, that is not next week. Shirley, there's nothing wrong with painting slowly. My paint dried in this video too. But also, you know, it's going to depend on the temperature of where you are when you're painting, the brand of paint you're using, how much paint you're using. Is it humid? Is it really dry? It's going to depend on so many different factors. And there's nothing wrong. If it does boil down to you painting slowly, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a race. There's not like a goal to be able to paint within a certain time frame.
Small knife for a minute. Actually, you know what? That feels like it's blending much easier to me with this little knife. I think I'm going to stick with it for a minute.
You guys like my goofy flowers on that pink background.
Good amount of pressure to really break up the top of those clouds. No blobs of paint in the clouds here.
No worms.
We're still not painting worms.
I haven't seen any worms with this technique too, so that's great.
Worms in the sky are creepy, remember.
Yeah, no creepy sky worms.
Do feel like there's a little too much of a disconnect there, so I got
see just that little tiny bit of water,
just a smear of that dark
or the other colors, you know, like I did on the little example here. Right, if you're afraid that you're so Shirley, you said that you were slow. If you're afraid that you're not going to be able to cover this whole background and get to the clouds before everything dries, then do it like I did here. You know, I started with a color and then I did some white and then I went to another color, and you can alternate your colors in white here. You don't have to put the clouds on top of the color. You can do it with it. And had I thought that my paint was going to dry before I got to the clouds, then I would have done it this way. Sky slugs. Sorry, Nelson. Oh, well, I'm kind of glad you guys like my goofy little bluebell flowers. I just wanted to show you because I really like that background. I didn't even finish the flowers.
Doing all of this before
there's not enough contrast in the stems and everything, but
to get a blend.
Yeah, just like that background. Then oh, I heard him meow just a minute ago.
As you
he's eating.
When I'm
he's getting a snack.
Talking while I paint, it's not an issue for me.
Mr. Moon, the people want to see you when you get a second.
All of it in just one go yesterday, but I wasn't talking to you guys. And I actually don't mind layering the colors like this. I feel like it's helping to give a little bit of an extra layer of dimension.
Another thing, for those of you who said that you were having a hard time getting coverage, do an underpainting first. You know, you can just get a brush and underpaint it, kind of this blue-gray color or whatever colors you're using, and then come back. You know, you can even wait until it's dry or not, whatever, then come back and do the same things I've done here. And then you don't have to worry so much about filling in all of the little holes.
Make sure you stand back so that you can tell if your clouds are starting
Do your
to
clouds
get a
follow
little
the
bit
layers
patterned.
of the sky, or can you
can
cross
break that
layers?
up.
You could cross layers. I think absolutely. If you look at clouds, a lot of times you'll have a formation kind of coming this way that gets cut off by another one. Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, let's keep these clouds as we move down into the darker area a little bit darker.
Mr. Moon. He's too interested in kitty kibble. Yeah, absolutely. Paint the background first.
Really like the way that's looking. Here's another thing about this painting and technique.
As soon as we're done with the sky, I'll show you
painting,
next
any
week's
technique we
painting,
do, guys.
because we'll be about halfway through the
We
video then.
all interpret how to use a tool differently. We all interpret how paint moves differently. We all have different preferences. We all have different experience. We all work different. So
Good,
that's gonna
Atra. I'm glad that you
translate
like
into
the
your painting,
little
just like it's
palette
translating
picture in
into
picture.
mine. My painting is not the
It was an
only way
experiment, and I
that
was
you
like,
can
okay, we'll do
it.
this until
This
people
is
start
not
screaming that they hate it,
ultimately
and then we'll go
what
back to
your
paper
painting
plates.
should look like. Your painting
But I
should
haven't
look
heard
like your
anybody
painting.
screaming about hating it yet.
So, you know, I hear this all the
Would
time.
you use
and
the
I know
same
I tell
color
you
at the
guys
top of the
all
painting?
time,
Yeah, you
but it's
absolutely
because I
could.
still hear
Absolutely.
it all the time.
You know, because
You
then
guys
you're going to
get
go over it with
frustrated
that lighter
and you
color.
hear,
And if
"Well, it
tiny
doesn't look like
little
yours."
pokes of that
Hey,
darker
that's a
color
good
show
thing.
up, then it
That
might
means
just look
that
like a
you are
shadow
using
in the clouds that are
your
up there.
artistic abilities. You're
Come on,
using
Mooney
your
Tunes.
experience as an artist to create something
Don't go under my
unique,
chair and
something
meow at
that's
me, dummy.
yours.
He's
It
going to go under
shouldn't
my
look
chair
like
and
mine.
meow at me.
It should look like yours. I'm just giving you an idea of what kind of techniques you can do to do a scene like
Come here.
this. Ultimately, how you do it is up to you. Let's
Hey.
darken that just a hint.
Come on. Come on.
We'll add one more little
Come
bank
on.
of clouds right over here.
Come on. Come on. There he is. There's the moon. The people wanted to say hi to you.
And remember that
Ooh,
every
my
time
cat's
you
breath
do a
smells like cat
painting,
food.
it's going to look different. This painting certainly looks different than the first one that I did.
Say hi to everybody. No?
So if you're frustrated because your painting doesn't look like mine,
No. Oh,
guess
he's
what?
gonna purr.
My painting doesn't look like mine. That's just the way it works out.
Please don't get on the table. You'll step in wet
Just
paint.
a bit of a highlight in there. I really like that. I'm really loving this cloud technique. So if it's something that you're enjoying,
Man, that tail
or
gets
you
in the way,
feel
doesn't it?
like you would enjoy it, but you need more practice on it,
Moon,
don't worry,
everybody
we'll do
says hi
this
to you.
more. And if that just made you groan, don't worry, you can use my cloud
He is a very
brushes and
handsome boy, and he knows it.
do
Oh,
the
here he
clouds
comes.
however you want to do them.
Here he comes. Okay, there we
There's little
go.
pops of color on those ones. Give them a bit more dimension.
Oh, he's gonna claw Mama's neck up. Ow.
Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead
I had
and
to
start
cut his
working on
nails
our
last
water.
week because he
And I
hooked
know
me
that I want my
really bad
horizon
in
to be
the
quite dark,
throat.
to almost black.
Okay, we'll pause right there for a minute. And please don't jump on the table. And we will go over, I will show you next week's painting. Okay, so next week's painting, I'm trying to think of where it even came from. Okay, you got to get down now. There you go. Sometimes I'll like go scrolling through Pixabay just to get, like, not even to find an image that I want to paint, but to get ideas. And so I think I was doing that. I was looking for something for Valentine's Day. And guys, I hate Valentine's Day. I just hate it. I don't like hearts. I don't paint flowers particularly well. You know, I don't want to paint a box of chocolates. I don't do Valentine's Day. But I know that everybody wants a Valentine's Day painting, and so I'm like, I gotta do a Valentine's Day painting. What am I gonna do? So, but I found an image that I really liked. I modified it a little bit. I cropped the image down a bit because the composition wasn't great. And then I ended up actually painting from that image because it just struck me and I really liked it a lot. So here's what we're gonna paint next week. Okay, I'll let you look at it for a minute. You can pretend that you're impressed. I know it's pink. I'm not a pink fan either, but I felt like the pink had to happen. Yeah, so this is what we're painting next week, and I absolutely had a blast painting this. This is one of my favorite paintings that I've ever done for a video, ever. It is a little more on the challenging side. It's definitely a level 2 painting. It's a long video. This is, yeah, you can absolutely make the flowers any color you like, any color you like. I'm not a big fan of pink, but when it's necessary, you know, I gotta go with it. And I felt like pink was the right color for this. This video is like a couple minutes shy of 2 hours. This is a long video. No, this is not palette knife. This is actually, I only used 2 brushes in this whole painting. I used my 1/2 inch flat and my number 8 bright. That's all I used. So yeah, I hope that you guys like this one. I really, really enjoyed painting that one a lot. In fact, how I've been working lately is, you know, I'll kind of practice little pieces from an idea that I have. And then once I'm comfortable with the little pieces and I know where I want them to be, what colors and, you know, all the techniques I'm going to use, then I'll put them together. I'll do the whole painting start to finish, and then the next day I'll film it. Well, lately it's happened a few times where my start to finish practice turns out better than the one that I end up filming. So this week I was like, okay, well, I think I'm going to film my start to finish practice just in case that happens. And that's the one that I ended up using. So this painting that I just showed you, that is the only time that I've gone through this whole painting start to finish all on one canvas. So kind of you're seeing me paint it for the first time, even though I've painted parts of it on their own. So yeah, so that's next week. Yes, 12 by 16, Gwen. And bye, Atra. See, you give her what she wants and then she's out of here. All right, so anyway, I hope you guys are excited about that one like I am. I'm super excited about it, so I guess that means that nobody will watch it, which I'm okay with because I know that that's how it goes. If I put out a painting that I'm like, meh, I don't care for this one, then everybody's like, ah, I love it. And I'm like, you guys are crazy, man. This thing is awful. So I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. Let's go back to our video. Whoops.
Blend in.
And freeze frame. Mr. Moon's gonna scream at me.
With this color here, I'm going to use my larger palette knife and mix up a blue-brown.
Yes, you can all just put it on a continuous loop on all of your devices.
More on the side of blue than I did in this one, just to keep a little bit of a difference.
Good. I'm glad to hear that you guys like it.
quite dark. I think I'm going to grab
But
just a
yeah,
little pinch
it's
of
a
white
2-hour video.
and
I
throw
won't
it
do that
in,
to you next
just
week.
so it's not,
We'll
you know,
probably do something a little
almost
more
completely
simple
black.
next week, a little bit shorter. That's kind of how I've been doing lately. I'll do
And
one
I've got
that's
a decent
like
amount of paint on here,
forever
but it's not
long and
globbed.
really involved, and then I'll do like a short, simple one that looks like a 5-year-old painted
just to
it.
find where my
And then,
horizon is
yeah, I
first.
have like
So I'm
no
gonna use the
middle
edge of my
ground,
knife,
and I have
just
cat
gonna
hair
pull
in my
the
eyes.
horizon down.
I have no middle
Making sure
ground.
that I'm
I have like the
keeping it
long, hard
as
videos, and I
straight
have
as
like the
possible.
super simple, dinky paint party style paintings.
Painting around a camera means that it's probably crooked, so I'll have to stand back and look at it. Not too bad, actually. Okay, I'm going to pick up more of that.
Bye,
same
Shirley.
color.
Thanks for coming.
Again, covering. And a little bit heavy, but not globbed. I'm going to use my knife flat, and I'm going to work.
How did everyone feel with the water?
So
Did you guys have a
pull it
pretty
that way.
easy time with the water? Did anyone have a hard
Just
time?
a little slash of white on there to keep.
What was
some
your experience
variation
painting the
in
water
color.
part?
And I can even go that way and that way, back and forth. Don't over mix the paint. You know, if you see something you don't like, don't keep going over it and over it.
Crooked horizons or Nelson's
because you don't know
curves.
how it's going to change as everything around it changes. If it's still too dark for you later on.
I understand that, Nelson, but
back here,
I swear that it's something that as you work on it,
texture, and
it will get easier. I have a much easier time drawing a straight line now than I did, you know. I didn't used to be able to draw a straight line. Something I've noticed that helps me, I don't know if you stand or sit to paint, Nelson, so let me know. But if you stand to paint, sometimes what I find helps me is to make all of your lines vertical. So if you're doing your horizon, take your canvas and put it sideways and do it vertical. Hold your arm where you need it, kind of, you know, this part of your arm is fully extended, your elbows bent, and then let gravity bring your elbow straight down. So rather than, you know, doing like this and like moving your shoulder, just let gravity bring your elbow straight down. And that will really help you get a nice straight line.
Kind of a broken look. And I want
oh, good. Eileen liked the back and forth with a palette knife.
And so I think going back and forth is going to help me get that look.
You do stand, Nelson. Okay, try that. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. So my arm, see, I'm fully extended here. And then you put your pen or whatever you're using on your canvas and just let gravity. Don't move your hand. Don't do one of these things.
I will show you what I mean.
Just let gravity bend your shoulders straight down. And it really does help you get very straight lines, much straighter than you can get going, you know.
Same dark color. I don't have quite as much of it. And a little more
Nelson,
white.
be nice to my
I'm
Nelson.
Mixing them together. They're just kind of marbled.
You're welcome. Let me know if that helped you. If it works for you when you try it.
So now, what I'm
going to Nisa, come on.
Short little strokes, sometimes forward, sometimes backwards. But then I'm also going to kind of maybe pull it up one side and down the other a little. Don't get too detailed with it, you know, trying to make like waves. Let it insinuate waves.
So nobody had a hard time with the water here.
And here is
looks
a
like
wave.
Pat's white was a little bit too thick.
Kind of give the idea.
But I mean, that's easily fixable. You can either just scrape it off like we did in the sky. If you're like, whoa, that's too whatever, just immediately scrape it off.
See that?
And then do it again.
Broken area. Pull that side up just a little and down the other side. When I'm tapping like that, it's to fill in the holes without wiping over it too much. More white. See, now it's starting to really look like a turbulent sea. And notice how
Nisa, you're fine. I didn't even notice.
Water is starting to get there.
Katrina, mine doesn't look like mine, remember? And I showed you the one that I did. before. My water looks different. It looks totally different. This looks like somebody else painted it. To me, it does anyway.
Too light
so,
here. You want
yeah,
to keep that
it shouldn't look
blue
like mine. It should look like yours.
down. We're going to come back
because you're not a photocopier. You're not a photocopy machine. You're an artist. You're taking the ideas and the techniques that I give you, and you're interpreting them yourself onto your canvas, and it's going to look like you painted it, not me. And that's the way it should be. Wow, Christopher, maybe I should play basketball. He says standing with your arm like that is how we were taught to shoot a basketball. It makes the shot go straighter. See? That's how you do straight lines, straight shots, all of that. Maybe I should try and play basketball, but I'm really short, so I don't think, and I can't really jump.
In toward it.
And I look weird in big tennis shoes. Maybe I'll just keep painting. Debbie said that her water was a disaster and she overworked it. Like I said, you guys, scrape it off. Watch. Let's pause momentarily. Where are all my buttons? I have so many buttons and like 3 different programs in front of me that I'm using to do this. So let's go over to our camera here, and I'm going to show you. If you overwork this, it doesn't matter. It's easy to fix. We're going to fix it. My paint is drying out because I'm sitting right under the heater. So let me get a little more paint out. Just a little bit. Okay, so we're going along with our water. We've got some white. We've got some blue, and we're doing our water, okay? Let's just get some of that on there. Nice and quick. Oh man, I've overworked that, or it's too dark, or it's too light, or my cam link cord is completely in my way. Can you stay out of my way, please? Thank you. Any of those things, okay? If I decide, oh man, that water looks like crap. Actually, I think it kind of looks good because I can barely even see it and I'm just splashing paint on there. I don't think that looks too bad. But if I decided, no, I hate that, that's awful. Okay, cleaned off my knife, coming in with the edge. Scrape it off. Wipe it off on my knife, on my paper towel. Scrape it off. And now I can come back in with some fresh paint and I can do it again. The only rule to that is you have to do it before it dries. So the instant you're like, oh, that water looks terrible, scrape it off. Now we have an underpainting to it. And you don't have to worry about filling all of the little holes. You can focus on getting your shapes and, you know, whatever you want in there. And guess what? If that one looks like junk too, scrape it off. Scrape it off as many times as you need to. There's no law against it. You don't have to leave that looking overworked or the wrong color. Just get it off of there. And that's it. And that's my rant for right now. I'm sure there'll be more. I haven't really ranted at you guys today, so if you need a good rant, then, you know, give me something to rant about. If my video ever wants to unpause, there we go. Kind of.
See, so maybe we have a little wave that's getting ready to crash in there.
Don't quit my day job, Eileen. What are you talking about? Oh, basketball. Yeah, I won't.
I'm going to put out a small amount of black paint. I don't need a ton of it. And some unbleached titanium. I'm going to stick with that same large knife.
Good. I'm glad that helped.
Some of my brown. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a dark brown-blue mixture. Heavier on the brown this time than on the blue. I'm going to bring that over here by my black.
Nelson.
Black in.
I've told, okay, there might be a rant coming actually now.
Definitely want it
Nelson just said it. Let's go full screen for the rant. How about that? Okay, so Nelson said, he's quoting me, "It's not awful, it's just different than mine. And also, when you end up with complete and utter garbage, just scrape it off." I think he's paraphrasing what I've said, but yeah, we get the point. But then after that, he said, "You make it look so easy, Jane." So I hear that all of the time. And, so here's what I think the difference is, because I don't think it's any easier than you guys do. I think the difference is that I know that I can correct something, and that's because I've made those mistakes before and had to correct it. I'm like, oh, it's okay if that totally screws up because I'll just fix it, you know. But when we don't have that experience behind us, it's harder to know what you can fix or even how to fix it. So we make mistakes and we kind of freeze up and we're like, I don't know what to do. And I think that goes in line with me making it look easy, because I've got a level of confidence, and that confidence is not necessarily in what I'm about to do. It's not, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to look great. Watch. The confidence is I'm about to do this and I could quite possibly totally screw it up. But if I do, I can fix it. That's where the confidence is. And I think that a lot of times when we don't have a lot of experience, we don't have confidence to be able to fix a mistake. And that kind of holds us back because we're afraid to make that mistake. I'm not afraid to make a mistake because I know I'll fix it, that I can fix it somehow, some way. So I really think that that's where confidence comes from. So I want you guys to think about that when you're painting. If you feel afraid, the fear, I think, for me anyway, I think it comes from not knowing if you can fix a mistake or how to fix it. So just let those mistakes happen and cross that bridge when and if you get to it. But approaching something with a lack of confidence, I think that it holds us back. You know the saying, fake it till you make it? Well, it's the same thing in art. If you're going to be confident, or if you want to be confident, then you have to portray confidence. Go to your easel and just paint. And who cares if you make a mistake, because you can fix it. Like my painting yesterday, I wasn't fully confident in it, the painting for next week, it wasn't yesterday. I wasn't fully confident in it. It was the first time I had run through it start to finish. But I knew that if I approached it with anything less than complete confidence, I would absolutely screw it up and then end up making a video that was just you watching me correct my mistakes all day. So I discovered many times throughout most of the painting that as I was standing there painting that, I had my left hand in my pocket. So, I mean, I looked totally casual. Had my hand in my pocket, standing at the easel painting. And there's even at least one time that I can think of where I take my left hand and like go like this to, you know, explain something in the painting. And you can see a line across the back of my hand from where my hand was in my pocket. And I did that partly to kind of exude confidence, because I knew that if I exuded confidence, I would feel confident and I would do a much better job than if I stood at the easel going, oh, don't screw up, don't screw up. I was like, I don't care if I screw up, I'll fix it. No big deal. That's where making it easy comes into play. And if you guys start doing that, people around you will be like, you make it look so easy. And that's the difference. Okay, let me see if I got any questions while I was on my tirade. And okay, we can all call Nelson Nelly now, apparently. Oh, only Cindy can call Nelson Nelly. All right, then I won't. Welcome, Mike. Glad to see you. Looks like you guys were too busy arguing about who gets to call Nelson Nelly. Nobody listened to my rant. Okay. All right, no more questions. So there was your rant for the day. It was kind of I think it was probably kind of a weak one. It was definitely a short one. Thanks, Eileen.
Than what's in the sky. So see, it's just a very dark, dark brown.
Oh, what are we doing now? Are we doing the rocks already?
Actually, you know what?
I wasn't even paying attention to my own video.
We're going to do the rocks.
Yep, we're doing the rocks.
Load up.
Solid rant. Thanks.
That paint. And come in here and start saying where my rocks are. I'm going to use the little edge to help me build the shape of those rocks. So I'm just kind of pushing it in.
If you guys don't have a knife like this for your rocks,
I'm not trying to go like this.
You could use a knife like this, and this little short edge here would be a good edge to make rocks with.
That thick paint there.
Katrina only comes for the rants. Thanks.
I'm not worried about covering up part of my water. I'm not worried about the color from the water dragging into there.
See, I'm not worried about any of this stuff. Why? Because I can fix it. Or it may not even show later on once I'm done. So sometimes I think we get really hung up on like, oh, I streaked my water into my rocks. Who cares? This is the first layer of the rocks. You're going to put highlights on it anyway. You probably won't even see it. Don't sweat it.
Edge of my knife. And just kind of wiggle it. Let the paint kind of push up however it's going to.
Did anybody have a hard time with the rocks, or were the rocks all pretty easy? I didn't see any of these paintings that, you guys all did such a good job.
I think that's good. I'm going to just go ahead and fill in the rest of this rock shape.
And I know I haven't been around much this week, so I'm sure there's quite a few more that I haven't seen yet, but everything I've seen just looks awesome.
And let's take some.
And see on my rocks there, I am applying the paint a little bit heavier than I did in the sky. Likewise, the paint in the water is a little bit heavier than in the sky. All of these things are coming closer to us, so the texture can be a little bit heavier.
Of this unbleached color. I'm actually going to add just a hint more brown into there. This is going to be the color where the sand is wet, where the water has been breaking on the beach. I like that. I'm going to come in here and just start laying it in nice and thick.
Good. Katrina really liked it. Eileen, I almost called you the Eileen. Eileen really liked doing the rocks like this.
The beach is the closest thing to us. That's where we're standing. So we can have some texture there.
Honestly, doing the beach here was the most satisfying part for me. Laying that paint down really thick and just leaving those lines. Oh, I love doing that.
All of these knife strokes kind of going, in this type of a direction. I'm gonna go back to my larger knife.
See, I keep going down to that small knife and then going, nah, I'm gonna go back to the larger knife. I liked the small knife for the rocks, but other than that, if you notice, for the most part, I stuck with that larger knife. I was just more comfortable with it, and so, I mean, that should tell you that the small knife is not imperative. It's not that you cannot do this if you don't have these tools. So whatever you have, whatever you're comfortable with, even if it's something totally different than me. Somebody, I think I did see one either in the Monster Squad or in the Patreon group. Somebody did the whole painting in finger paint. Was that somebody here today? It was so cool.
Go just a little lighter.
I love finger paint. We haven't done finger paint for a long time.
I'm using quite.
We should finger paint again, shouldn't we?
Get it right up into that rock.
See, and Kelly loved the small knife.
Move it down this way.
And I thought that that would be the knife that I really wanted to use, and then every time I picked it up, I was like, no, not at all the knife I want to use.
just unbleached. Now, however,
Mike says, I have an unrelated
those
question.
other colors are still in there. Right up
I
into
find
that
something
rock.
beautiful online and try to capture it, but don't know how to give credit when I can't find the artist. I guess it depends on what kind of forum you're looking to give credit in. If it's in like public sales, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't sell the
What's
artwork.
left of my unbleached, and just loosely
Because
mix them
giving
together.
credit doesn't give you
Just get a lighter
permission
version of
to
that color.
copy someone's artwork.
I'm just gonna lighten it up just
If
a
it's
little bit
like
right
in the
here.
Facebook group, I mean, we've been going on with this
I'm not overworking
forever.
it. I'm definitely letting the colors blend.
In the Facebook group, we
But
ask that
if
you
you go
don't post
over
it if you
and
can't
over
find
it, you're just gonna
the
blend
original
it all
artist.
into
And the reason for
oblivion,
that
and
is
just have, like, a
simply we
big
want to
kind
make
of
sure that
looking area. We don't want that.
it's something that people are aware of,
Back
and
to my little
there's no
knife for a
confusion
minute,
about who
get a good
owns
amount
an
of star
image and
color
who
just
has
right
the
on the
right to
tip.
give someone else the
And I
permission
want to
to
kind of say that there's
copy
a
an
little bit of
image.
shadow
That's why we
here
ask you in the
being
group.
thrown onto
There
the side
is, if you go to
of the
Google,
rock.
you can actually click images
Kind of
and you
nudging
can
those colors
drag
together.
an image into the search box and Google will search and find it. And
Super
I've had
light
pretty
pressure
good
just to
luck. I mean,
pull that
sometimes it
shadow
can take
out.
some digging, but a lot of times you can
Just a
easily find
little.
it.
Let's add some highlights on our rocks. So I just put out a little bit more burnt umber.
Debbie,
right
what are
in
you
that
giving
area
up
where I was
on?
mixing the
Don't give up.
black with it.
Girlfriend,
Just a hint of the
you
black in
know
there.
how I
There's
feel
also
about
some
I give up.
unbleached. I don't want to go too light just yet because this first color is just going to indicate the placement of our shadows. So a light smear on the back, no blob.
But also, Mike, if you're just painting it
And
for
the
yourself,
first thing I want to do is
it's
just
fine. It
indicate
doesn't
where
matter.
the flat surfaces on the top of the rock are. So just come in with your knife again and just kind of pull a shape.
Debbie Rice, brushes up, girlfriend. What are you giving up on?
Happen. Wherever that paint touches, just leave it. Let it be there. Don't try to say, oh, that's not where I want you. I want you over here. Because that's apparently not where the paint wants to be. So don't fight it. Just let it be where it wants to be. See, just worrying about the top edges right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sometimes I totally, yeah, use all caps and scream at me and say, answer my question. About my glass palette, how I like it. I really like it. I like how big it is. I have a lot of room to mix on it, especially when using a palette knife. It's a nice smooth surface. It's so much easier to mix paint and load paint on a knife than it is on a paper plate. Super easy to clean. Yeah, I wish I would have done it a long time ago. Sorry, Debbie. I missed you. I didn't mean to. Kelly. Kelly says she has a plastic one, struggles to clean it. Kelly, look on my Instagram, and I have a quick little video where I show you how to make a glass palette, the exact one that I'm using in the video here. And in the abstract video, there's actually a little segment where I show you how to clean it, and it's super easy to clean and take care of.
Mix up a darker color and just kind of take it back a little bit.
Yep, super easy to clean. Super, super easy. Spray it with a little bit of water, just water. Let it sit for like a minute.
Pull it that way.
Get a palette knife and scrape it off, and it's gone. Even if the paint is dried for days.
Don't go overboard on it.
I filmed this week's video on Wednesday, and I just cleaned my palette off yesterday from it, and it took me like less than 5 minutes.
Not every surface has to have it.
Yeah, I had one of those little plastic palettes, and the first time I used it, I was like, how am I supposed to get this off now? So that was just a waste of money.
When I apply the paint here, I am picking up some of those darker colors. And if I don't wipe it,
Christopher asked, did I stick to 3 colors for the rocks or more? I think I did. I think I used burnt umber, black, unbleached, and titanium. So I think I did 4 colors on here.
Or streak it, whatever it's going to do.
Yeah, Kelly, the glass palette is heavy, but it just lives on my workstation, so I don't ever have a need to pick it up. If it were something where I felt like I needed to be able to pick it up and move it around a lot, I'd make a smaller one. That one I made was 16 by 20, so it's large.
It's harder to use.
But I've been thinking I need to get
really, it's the exact same
like
thing.
make an 8 by 10.
Okay, now what I'm going to
so
do,
that I can use a glass palette here when I'm doing demos rather than paper plates.
Way too strong for me.
But yeah, and I think even if you got like, if you were going to do an 8 by 10, leave it in the glass. Leave it in the, or leave the glass in the frame. Just hold the frame. And then you don't have to worry about taping it.
Kind of breaks it up a
you could
little bit.
absolutely do that.
So instead of a nice smooth bright color there,
Eileen said that the paint dries quicker on the glass than on a plate. That's interesting. I would think it would be the opposite, because on a plate, the paint can actually absorb through the bottom, which would dissipate the moisture quicker. I haven't had that experience.
But I can even come in and do that.
Welcome, Gretchen.
With the lighter color. If you feel like it's starting to get away from you, then just let it dry. Come back to it. But you're not allowed to get frustrated and throw up your hands and give up.
See, Debbie, no giving up. Even if I miss your question 5 times in a row.
I'm almost happy with these rocks. Almost. This part's bugging me for some reason. There. Okay. I'm good with the rocks now.
Oh, well, that's why it stays wet longer on the paper plate, Eileen. She's using like a wet palette. You can do a similar thing with a glass, though it's more for storage. You can take like those kitchen sponges that are almost like a sheet sponge. It's very thin. Soak it with water, put it in the bottom of like a plastic tray that your glass will fit on top of. But I mean, that's not really going to keep it wet while you're painting, but then you can close it and it will keep it wet.
Down in it, and don't work it too much, because then you'll lose the texture. It'll just blend in. So I'm going to come into here and just kind of light pressure, wiggle it up into there, and that's it. Wipe it off. More white. If I were to keep going over that, see how it already started to blend? I would just blend more and more. I'm going to start with the white down in the blue. Kind of pull it up onto the beach.
Oh, we're almost done, aren't we?
Let's just pull that back. I didn't pick up any more paint. Quite a bit of white right there, so I just wanted to get it out. Move it around a little. Oh, I didn't wipe off my knife good enough.
A butcher's tray? No, I'm not sure what a butcher's tray is.
Right now,
it sounds kind of gross, but I imagine it's not.
We'll get the little spray everywhere else. Break up that weird line there. Just kind of tapping it.
Yeah, a microwave disc. Yeah, that would be a good idea, Nisa, with the glass turntable. Thank you, Debbie. I'm glad that you like this one.
Try to keep your waves kind of breaking this way. So I kind of started going straight down because my brain doesn't work all the way when I'm talking and painting. So keep it going toward the beach. Let's get a little bit more. I'm going to kind of take it on the edge this time. Maybe that's just a little much paint. And here where I said that I felt like that was a wave, I'm going to start by kind of touching. I'm just touching the paint. Don't put the knife right on there, because then you're going to get this hard line. Just kind of touching the paint, tapping and lifting it. Nice texture.
Oh, Donna, like the styrofoam that it comes under meat? I like that idea better than what Nelson said. That sounds terrifying.
Really tight and straight, and that's not what we want. I'm just going to kind of lay it in there. Then we can come back with the tip of the knife and just a tap. Just tapping to kind of break that up a little. Flat. My knife is flat.
Interesting.
Flat knife. Even kind of come up a little to give it a spray.
Nope, I have never used one of those, Christopher. I can't say as I can even picture it.
And in here, we want to add a little bit of white. Well, let's break this up, actually. There we go.
You're welcome, Gwen. I'm glad that you're liking that glass palette. The cleanup video is not on Instagram. It's in the abstract video.
Break up the line here where the water meets the beach.
Like in the middle of the abstract video.
And tap that area to break it up.
How was the white, the spray in the water, the break, whatever it's called? I don't live anywhere near the ocean. I have no idea what it's called. Did everybody have a pretty okay time with this?
Now in here, some of this is dry, some of it is wet, but there is some texture in there, and we're going to use that texture. And I'm just going to touch the paint to the area. Don't squish down in it. You don't want to smear all that blue paint. Just kind of like touching and pulling it in one direction or the other. Wipe off my knife and back.
I think if you haven't done this yet, if this part kind of makes you nervous to do, I think you're perfectly okay to let everything dry before you go to it with the white.
And streak that way, and then maybe back.
Debbie has no comment. Kelly, horrid storms are the best kind of storms. Yeah, see, Gwen said that she let it dry before going on to it. And so yeah, most of my water was dry. It was still quite wet toward the front, but as we got toward the back, it was almost completely dry, which was great because then the peaks on the paint grabbed the white, and it helped make it look so much more natural.
The tiniest hint back here.
Nisa, tell Paul that I hope he brought enough for all of us. We could all use a burrito right now.
I actually want to work on my beach here, but that sand is still quite wet. So I'm actually going to get out my hairdryer and dry that part, and then I'll finish the sand and we'll be done. Okay. The water is pretty much dry now. I mean, the surface of it is dry. If I gouge into it, I'll still pick some of it up. But I think what I decided was to take a little bit more of this bluish color from the water. And I've got a good amount loaded up on the tip of my knife. And I'm going to pull just a little bit up into the sand, just here and there.
Well, Mike, I hope you enjoyed the cloud brushes and this painting when you get to do it. I was going to ship cloud brushes today, but being that it's Sunday, they won't go out until tomorrow anyway, so I figured I would just spend the day with you guys, and I'll ship brushes tomorrow morning.
And a little bit of white, just a light smear, still at the little palette knife. And then I'm
yeah, this part can be a little bit tricky, Dee. But I think if you bring your water up onto the beach in the first place, like I didn't do, you can even do your beach first and then bring the water.
Edge of the rock, breaking on the rock just a little bit.
Then I think it would be easier. I felt like I needed to do this because I didn't have enough of that blue showing on the beach. So if I were to do this again, I probably would do the rocks and the distant water, and then the beach, and then the water coming toward the beach.
No, it's hidden with
where here I did all of the water, and then I did the beach around it. So I think that's where the issue was. So if you haven't done it yet, try that. Do the beach, and then the water. And I think the trickiest part about doing this is just taking care that you don't put too much pressure on the knife. That paint is quite thick, and if you push down into it too much, You're going to get some texture that you may not want. You're going to lift paint, and you're going to squish colors together and blend them too much. So it's really just about touching the paint that's on the knife to the paint that's on the canvas. It's not about getting your knife in there.
Corner of the knife. So I'm really using that right there. My knife is not flat.
Oh, hang on, I gotta move my big old head.
There. Bring it up over the horizon and it'll be clear.
There we go.
That it's kind of a spray.
Okay, guys, looks like we are about done. So if you have any last questions, get them ready, and we'll spend a couple minutes answering some other questions before we're done for the day.
Okay, I feel like I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to take my number 3, my number 2 round brush, a little bit of black paint, and I'm going to sign it.
And that's all there is. We're all done. So, final questions. Any questions you guys want? Oh, I guess I can show you next week's painting again. I think that there's probably a few people who came in the middle and missed it. So if you came in the middle and missed what we're painting next week, I'm hoping to have it to you guys tonight. For some reason, this video took my computer more than 6 hours to process. So it's a really big video. So I don't have it up just yet, but I'm going to upload it as soon as I get home. And hopefully you guys will have it tonight, but if not, it'll be there tomorrow morning. But so again, that's what we're painting this week. And I know that some of you are probably like, nope, that's above my skill level. But guys, really everything we've done here are things that we've done before. I used a lot of techniques that we used in September in our 30 days in this. So there's no new techniques here. There's really no new concepts, except we spend a little bit of extra time talking about values, which we've talked a little bit about, but we kind of focus on that here. But as far as brush strokes go, it's some layering. There's nothing new here. So I don't want you to feel intimidated if you think that this is above your skill level. I want you to just try it, okay? Yeah, so any last questions before we say bye-bye for the week? Let's see. Nadine says, I seem to not paint my corners, so when I finish, I usually have to go back to fix them. Yeah, make sure you get in there and get those corners in the first place. Yeah, Kelly, exactly. The paint can. We don't layer this one quite as much, but really yes, there are a lot of things in this painting that are very similar to things we did in the paint can. Absolutely. Thank you, Deb. She said it's very zen. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And that's right, Nasa. Exactly. She said we can all do this. Jane will talk us through it. And I talk a lot. Part of the reason the video is almost 2 hours long is because I am trying to use time lapse as little as possible. You know, in the past, I've been nervous to make a video too long because I didn't want you guys to get bored and move on. So I would use time lapse for parts where I wasn't really talking much or whatever. So on this one, I tried to minimize that. There is still a little bit of time lapse, but there's really not a lot. So it's not that this video is 2 hours long because it's this huge, horribly in-depth, hard thing. It's because I tried not to use a lot of time lapse. And all right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, then I guess we can call it a day. I always love hanging out with you guys and chatting with you and watching videos, and you know, like I've said, you guys asking your questions and me getting to demonstrate them to you really helps me kind of get a grasp on what kind of questions people are going to ask, what kind of things people have issues with. And so you asking me these questions and being here helps me be a better teacher. And so I really appreciate it. So yeah, I'll get you a new video tonight or tomorrow, and then we'll get a viewing party for the flower vase going next week. So yeah, I hope you guys all have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you later.